Hey everybody, thanks to Triumph UK themselves, I've had the Scrambler 1200 XE on loan for the past 8-10 days roughly, and now it's time to give you my review. If you're a regular viewer of my channel, you will know the way I do my reviews is I do a first ride video, which is like my first emotional responses to the bike and anything that jumps out at me. I make several videos in between, which sort of look in depth into different aspects of the bike and what it's for and trying it in different areas. And then the review is like the culmination of all of that. So I can make the review a bit shorter, but if you want to know more about any in-depth part, you can go off to a video and see that. Now, the reason I bring this up is I want to keep this review relatively simple. It is capable of everything, as they say, a jack of all trades. Now they do say jack of all trades, master of none, but if you know the full saying, it's jack of all trades, master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one. This bike is honestly brilliant and I love it, and I wish I didn't have to send it back, because this is the closest thing I've found myself to a combination of my two bikes put together. I have a DRZ 400 SM and an X86. One is a supermoto for fun, the other is a 600cc and 9.4 for getting miles done on. This is kind of like a culmination of both, like many adventure bikes would be, but the difference is this isn't nearly as big as some of the big adventure bikes like the Tigers and stuff like that. Really enjoy those for the exact same reasons, but this is leaning more towards the smaller supermoto side. Obviously, 21-inch front wheel is not a supermoto, it needs a 17 at the front, but that's not the point. This is more of an enduro. You see what I mean? It kind of sits very much in the middle. The XE, of course, is the one that is aimed for off-road use the most. You've got different modes in there. You've got off-road mode and off-road pro, where you can turn off all the traction control and ABS, which is obviously something you're going to need, but it does have some help in there in the standard off-road mode. There's a wet mode, rain mode, and then there's a sports mode and a road mode. And all I'm going to tell you about those is this. Off-road stuff, yeah, it turns off the traction control and the ABS, and that's exactly what you're going to want, so fantastic. And for the road modes, it basically comes down to those three. Wet, for when it's wet, just, more traction control, and a little bit reduced on the throttle map. Then there's the road mode, which is the best one in my opinion. It sits right in the middle. It's really nice to ride with. I'll talk about that more when I get out on the road in a minute. But then you also have the sports mode, and all that seems to do is just make the throttle a little bit more snappy, just a bit more like a lighter dirt bike with a bit more snap off the throttle. I actually prefer it in the road mode, because with the extra weight of this bike, with the wheel, the size of the wheel, it just seems like the power delivery in road mode is far better for exiting corners and just riding, spiritedly. I've done a video called A Closer Look, where I go up to the bike and I actually show you all its sort of fixtures and fittings more close up and spend a lot more time talking about the bits and pieces. But as an overview, we have Showa front suspension, Öhlins adjustable rear suspension, I should say the front's adjustable as well, 320mm Brembo double discs on the front, 255mm Brembo on the rear, but you'll also notice that the chain is on the right hand side of the bike, which is a little bit unusual. 21-inch front wheel, which is a 90/90/21, and the rear, because I can't remember, it's 160/70/17. And this is on tubeless spoked rims. LED lights, a blunderbuss for an exhaust system, a nice, big, thick, wide, comfy seat, some absolutely beautiful blue paint. That's the blue and black, which I think looks fantastic. And yeah, that's kind of it. It is a simple bike. But in its simplicity, as I say, it hits so many of the points that I love about motorcycles. Okay, I'm going to quickly show you the controls and then we're going to get out on the road because that's what this bike is about. Okay, first thing to point out, and I've mentioned this in my other videos, is the fact that this has a keyless system. I will also note that if your Triumph key won't pop up like that, just check, if you push it back a little bit more, there is a roll pin here that holds the key into the housing. If that slips out slightly, it stops it from coming out smoothly, which makes it very annoying to get out. You just have to tap that back in. So as I say, it is a keyless system. For that reason, this means you never use the key, right? Wrong. You actually use it twice as much on this bike because it's missing one button. On the other Triumphs, like the Tigers and things like that, when you put the steering lock on, you just pull the steering to the side and you have a button up here that you press. And that puts it on. On this bike, because of the design of it, because they can't get all the motors or the actuators or whatever in there to, get it on there, it doesn't have that. It has a manual steering lock, which is fine, okay? But if you think about this logically, if this was just a key that turned the ignition on, you'd put that in there, unlock the steering lock, turn the bike on, and then when you get back off of it, you naturally do the same thing. With the keyless system, as I say, obviously this is supposed to be a keyless system, you want this in your pocket, you have to unlock the steering lock, put the key in your pocket, then when you want to get off the bike, you have to get the key back out of your pocket to put the steering lock back on for when you leave the bike. So as I say, rather than just touching this once to get off or on like this, you're doubling up. Very small point, but actually leads to be quite annoying because you actually do need to have that on for insurance purposes. And of course, yes, you could leave the key in there the whole time so it acted just like a normal key, but then I'd be like, well, what's the point of having a keyless system if you're going to have the key in there anyway? And it also sits up a bit too high to be in front of the clock, so it's a bit annoying. So yeah, a little gripe there, but otherwise, that's pretty much the only con I have about this bike. All of its other sort of pros and cons come and go with the fact that it is just an all-rounder. Sure, it's only got a small tank, well, 16 litres, but at 50 miles a gallon on this bike, I've noticed that I'm wanting to fill it up half a tank every time I'm riding it. So you do have to fill it up quite a lot, and if you were going on a long distance journey, well then that's going to be a bit prohibitive. But the pro to that is that when you go off-road, you don't have to deal with all that weight up the top, and that's one of the things that makes this bike feel and ride like a much smaller bike, while equally being very capable of doing most of the other things that you can do on the other types of adventure bikes. Apart from, again, then you have to point out the fact that there is no wind protection on this. But then again, because of that, there is no wind protection on this, and it's lighter, and you can use it more like a dirt bike, like it's intended. As you can see, I'm just going to keep going round into an Ouroboros circle of it is what it is because it is. It's just a motorcycle. So as the name Triumph Scrambler 1200 gives away, this is indeed a 1200cc bike, producing around 90 brake horsepower at 7,500 RPM and about 110 Newton meters of torque at about 4,500 RPM. I do like that feature, look, it goes red. Not the loudest bike in the world for a 1200 if I'm honest, but if you had a different exhaust on it, my god, it would probably be very loud. This bike has got a 6-speed gearbox, and it's not quick shift or anything like that, and it's absolutely lovely. Not too much travel, not too little travel on the clicks, very smooth in between, it's just good. And that's kind of one of my points I'm going to make about this bike overall, which is just, as I've said already, it's just good. It's not absolutely like crazily good in any one area, but it's just good all round and a lot of fun. Automatically cancelling indicators, of course, because it's a Triumph and they are quite handy. Okay, as for comfort and ergonomics, I am 6'4" and this bike is absolutely perfect for me. Very upright seating position, perfectly placed out arms, plenty of leg room, although it does mean that my leg sits probably further forward onto the exhaust than most people's. I think you can pretty much ride this at any height as long as you can get your feet on the ground. That's what I'm trying to say there. When you sit in that sort of chair position, anyone can do that. You just have to get your feet on the ground. That's the one important bit. As I say, this is a 1200cc, 230 kilo bike, and you can ride it around like it's a little 125 really. Even with a 21-inch front wheel on it. Like, it's fantastically good with that. I would be very much interested to see what this would be like with a, with a set of 17s on it. But then again, why are you putting a set of 17s on something that isn't a supermoto? I mean, it is like an enduro, but it's also like a road bike and a lot of other things. It's a bit of everything. The throttle response on this is, of course, because it is a ride-by-wire throttle, it's adjustable, but the way that it feels, as I say, in the road mode is perfect for me, and for that reason I find that, I've just put this in road mode and not really played with it much. I mean, I've had a bit of a play to experience the different modes and stuff, but as I say, rain is clearly for rain, and that's just going to make the traction control very sensitive, and the sport mode just makes it snappier. The engine itself is an absolute gem. It's just really smooth, really nice. It's got a bit of a rumble there, no real massive vibrations, no high frequency vibrations that I've experienced at all throughout this bike, just big rumbles, soft rumbles. The clutch itself is one of the Triumph assisted clutches, so that means that not only is it very easy to pull, but it is also, sorry, she really confused me, it's not only is it easy to pull, but it also slips. So you can drop down a gear and it won't lock the rear wheel. I did actually feel a very slight, and that of course gives you the ability to fly up to a corner, slam on the front brakes, dump through the box, slow the bike right down, and then ride back out the other side of that corner like you're on a supermoto or enduro, or, well, lots of bikes really, but there's just something about that get down, get the corner tight and blast out of it that you get from dirt bikes. And I love it, I really do. Now, this isn't quite as manoeuvrable as something with, say, 17-inch rims. The amount of stuff that gets dumped down here. I have noticed that in corners you have to be aware of it having a 21-inch front wheel, but it just means you just have to ride it with the timing slightly differently. You have to turn at slightly different moments, it feels like. It's hard to explain. It definitely feels different, but it doesn't feel like it's limiting, and that's something that I've been really impressed by this bike with its large, narrow front wheel. It just doesn't really feel like it that much. This also has anti-stall, so you can just let the clutch out, no throttle, and it's going to stop you from stalling, and just rolls along on its own. And that has thrown me in the past thinking that the throttle coming on was a bit odd. It was a bit unpredictable, and that's because I hadn't fully let the clutch out and it hadn't given me all the throttle response, or at least stopped trying to anti-stall. Let's have a little look at the brakes themselves, shall we? As I say, 320mm Brembos on the front. They are great, but I have noticed that the time that my brain thought it would take for this bike to stop is actually a little bit less than it does. There's a little bit of carry-on. Rear brake alone, this is with obviously with ABS on. Yeah, see, that's clicking away. Let's try and use a combination of both. Oh, anti-stall didn't save me there. I was in second. But that's a full-on emergency stop. Yeah, I mean, it will stop you, but there is a little bit more time than you may have expected. Or at least I found that. Probably to do with the leverage of a 21-inch front wheel on those discs. Oh, cabs. Something manual disabled. The answer to anything like that on a bike like this is switch it off and switch it back on again. There we go. Oh wait, is this the other end of the sludge road? It is. I've just realised which one I've come onto. Oh well, this is an off-road crossed bike, so we might as well do a bit of both. Those software features of it being a bit more intelligent with its traction control for off-road and things like that, I think actually makes this possibly better on the winter UK roads, which are, at times, semi-off-road, depending on where you live. Constantly covered in mud and leaves and stuff. Having the slightly more intelligent traction control system might actually be a good thing. Goats! I don't think I've ever seen a flock of goats over here. See what I mean? It's all about that low down torque and grunt. As I say, when you come through the corners, you do have to be aware you're on a 21-inch front wheel. It takes a slightly different line, but it doesn't feel any less tight necessarily. You just have to get used to it. This is where this bike is good. Get it in third. Don't have to use the gears much. The gearbox is quite long, but it's got a ton of torque, so it's absolutely fine. It doesn't feel too long, although you can adjust that with the gearing, obviously. But country roads like this, 60 mile an hour, national speed limits, well, as you all know, I'm biased on this. This is my favourite type of riding. This is proper fun. You know, I'm not someone who wants a sports bike and a track on a real road in real weather. It's pretty cold today. It's pretty windy, and just enjoy it. It's what biking is for me. It's the zen calmness that comes with it. Is this sort of thing. There's that slipper clutch. And again. It just hits my motorcycling buttons perfectly, but it's also capable of doing everything that I need a bike to do. So I do really kind of want this bike, if I'm honest. I love it. Oh, the exhaust. I haven't mentioned this, and I'm sure it's a big question lots of people will have. The exhaust. Does it get hot? Well, as I've said, I'm 6'4", so I've got longer legs than most people, so I kind of have my legs slightly further forward than most, onto almost the second piece of heat protection there. Yes, that exhaust does get hot. Does it get so hot that it will burn you in an instant? No. Can you lay your leg on it for a minute when you're filling the bike up and be like, oh, that's quite toasty, but not have any burns or anything? Yes, it's basically, it is warm. It is very warm, but it is not that bad. I have seen some people, trying to find some solution to cool it down, or somehow make it less hot on their leg, but I just don't think it needs it. Your left side, however, freezing cold. See, look, I'm just in third here, 40 mile an hour, and that's only a small amount of throttle. If I was a little bit more aggressive, well, so I'm going back the way I came because I love this road. As I mentioned earlier, the seat is very big and squidgy and comfortable, and there is plenty of real estate on it for two up. The pegs, the pillion pegs are, they're reasonable, and you've got a grab rail going on back there. Okay, so to give you a bit of a sort of a conclusion, I think you can tell by now that I just think that this is an absolutely brilliant all-rounder that is really, really good fun and has that sort of small bike fun in places, not all places and not entirely, but it doesn't feel like a big heavy bike that it kind of is. As I say, I've said this, you know this. It also looks absolutely fantastic in my opinion. I love the look of this bike. It is that perfect mix of classic and modern, and none of it's too sort of chintzy or try-harding. Like the aluminium brushed cap over the standard plastic fuel cap is a genius little move. Oh, is this the remnants of the gravel pile? I think it is. This is the closest thing I've found to my one bike solution to date. I've ridden so many different bikes, and if someone said to me, you can't have those two, you've got to have one, so far, it's this one. It's not too big, it's not too small. You can go off-road, you can go on-road. You can do the miles if it needs to, but it's not ideal at it. But that's fine, because I don't want to do that so much. It's just, and it looks, and I love it. Thank you to Triumph for lending me this bike. No, actually, Triumph, why did you lend me this bike? Now I want one. But seriously, thank you, Triumph, for lending me this bike. I very much look forward to trying some of the other scramblers. I'm going to continue to try and get bikes from Triumph over the winter, but I don't know exactly how that's going to work out because, they don't always have, they sort of move on demo bikes over the winter in most companies and things calm down and settle down. But I'll do my best because, well, I still need to do my job. If you've enjoyed this video and the series of videos I've done on this bike, then please do hit that like button. I would very much appreciate it. Subscribe if you are new here. I'm on my way to 100k and I'm getting really close now, and it'd be cool if we could get that by the end of the year, but I feel it's probably unlikely. But, you know, every single one that helps out with that one is one step closer to getting it done. Also, if you want to help support this channel, and maybe I can have the prospects of looking to buy one of these in the long distant future, consider joining my Patreon. Links in the description. You get early access to videos, it helps support the channel, and there are other benefits and perks to that as well, such as the Discord and being able to chat with me on there and things like that. So there you go. Bye bye.